Hey guys, this is Blanket Ninja here for lawlessons.net, here for our first video in our educational series. Today we're going to learn about the concept of pressuring. We'll learn exactly what it is, why it's useful, and a couple different situations you can use it in. Pressuring is used for a whole different variety of things, to harass enemy champions, to zone them off with CS, and you can even use pressure defensively in order to protect your towers and champions as well. Before we learn how to properly pressure and lane as a support, we first need to go over the concept of zone control. Zone control, put simply, is the space around your champion that you control. This zone is defined by the range of your auto attacks and the range of your skills. Every champion has a zone of control that is different, and most have zones that constantly change. Understanding the strength and range of your zone is critical so that you can use it to your advantage. Let's start with Taric, a champion who has a zone that is very simple to understand. Taric's zone is defined by his stun range. If you are within range to be stunned, then you are within Taric's zone of control. Once Taric actually uses his stun, his zone of control is dramatically reduced to just his auto attack range. This leaves Taric incredibly open until his stun is back up and his zone of control is back at maximum range. So let's move on to Lulu, a ranged support. A huge benefit of ranged supports is that they are not as open when their skills are down. Here we see Lulu in the range on her Glitter Lance. After Lulu uses her Glitter Lance, we can see that she still commands a decent sized zone of control with just her auto attack. Later we will see how you can use this constant zone of control to your advantage. Understanding your champion zones is an extremely important step that is necessary before you can begin to apply the concept of pressure. Each champion will have different zones of control you will need to learn and get comfortable with. So now that we understand the concept of zone control, it's time to start applying it in our play. Trading and harassment occurs when an enemy champion is in another champion's zone of control. You can either move your zone into the enemy, or force the enemy to come into your zone. Let's go over this clip in detail to see exactly where every zone is and how we make use of them to get off some good harass onto the enemy bot lane. Here at the start of this clip, we have Caitlyn and Sona versus Miss Fortune and Leona. Caitlyn and Sona are notorious for being a very pokey lane that is hard for low range champions to deal with. As you can see, they have control over a very large portion of this lane. Up until now, Leona's zone of control was uncertain because she has not used any skills yet. However, she uses her Q to kill this ward. Since her Q is a melee skill, Leona's zone at level 1 is very small in comparison to Caitlyn and Sona. This allows us to move forward and freely harass Leona since she is now in our zone and we are not in hers. This is an example of moving your zone into the enemy in order to harass. This forward movement of zones is a fantastic example of creating pressure. As you move your zone of control closer and closer to enemy champions, they are pressured into making a decision to fight you or back off. Each time you move your zone of control into them, they will instantly have to make a decision. This continual forcing of decisions is the basis behind pressuring. Now we will see how we can get the enemy to come into our zone of control. The easiest way to get an AD carry to come into your zone is to position yourself so that if they were to walk forward the last hit, they would have to walk into your zone. Here we can see that MF clearly has to walk into Caitlyn's zone in order to last hit these creeps. As she walks up, Caitlyn forces her zone into Miss Fortune and gets an auto attack off. Miss Fortune decides to back off instead of going for the creep. This is a successful case of pressuring as the enemy AD carry misses a CS. It's important to note that although Caitlyn could have chased Miss Fortune and gotten one more auto attack off, Caitlyn was drawing minion aggro. Minions themselves also give off a zone of control. It's a very common mistake not to take this into account. Minions do a substantial amount of damage if you stand within their zone for too long, so make sure to respect their zone as well. This is also a good time to talk about why bush control is so important. So far we've seen that zones of control can come from champions and minions. Now we will see that they can come from bushes as well, and why controlling them is so important. With Annie in this bush, Graves and Karma have to deal with Annie popping in and out of the bush to harass them. Since they do not have vision in the bush, This creates a huge area of pressure because Annie could be anywhere along the bush and pop out at any time. Having command of this bush leads to having a zone of control that extends the entire length of the bush. If he wants to CS, Graves must walk into the zone where he will be harassed heavily by Annie. If Graves recognizes this and decides not to go for the CS and stay back where it's safe, this is what everyone refers to as being zoned. Being zoned means that you cannot CS as you would be walking into the enemy zone of control. Setting up these zones of control in order to force people off of CS is a crucial part of laning and one of the best ways you can use pressure to your advantage. This next short bit is extremely important for support players in general. One of the best ways to support your AD carry during laning phase is to constantly create pressure and absorb pressure from the enemy laners so that your AD carry only has to worry about last hitting. When your AD carry goes up to CS, make sure you're protecting them from harass by creating pressure on the enemy AD carry. Here we see Lulu dancing back and forth to create pressure so that Vayne can last hit safely. While Vayne generally has a very difficult time last hitting against Caitlyn due to short range, a little bit of pressure from Lulu can help out quite a lot. This means that Vayne is free to last hit while Lulu actively tries to shield and protect her. This will lead to an AD carry that farms up well throughout the laning phase, putting them in a much better position to carry you throughout mid and late game. So that's about it for this week's video. Thanks a lot for watching. Hopefully it was helpful and you learned a lot from it. Make sure to check out lawlessons.net, where we'll be releasing videos just like this one weekly. Also make sure to check it out if you're looking for some coaching. We've got some amazing high level coaches that can definitely help you out to improve your game. We're also going to be releasing champion guides for a whole ton of different champions, some highlight montages, and just a whole ton of amazing content in general. If you're interested, make sure to check us out. Again, it's lawlessons.net. That about wraps up this week's video. Thanks again for watching. Until next time.